Dang, this is difficult to do by myself. Oh my. I can't wait to read all the comments from people who know how to put yukatas on. It is July and August, and this time in Japan, if not for the special circumstances we're in now, there would be a lot of outdoor festivals or matsuri, and to that people would wear yukatas. So I thought that I would take this opportunity to share the yukata that I made during my year in Japan and try it on, because I have not tried this on since like I was in Japan. So you all seem to like my video where I showed my school uniform from Japan, so I thought I would share this yukata that I made, talk a little bit about how I made it, and then yukatas in general. I honestly do not know that much about yukatas, so my knowledge is going to be very basic and limited. More about how I made the yukata. So before I talk about the yukata itself, I'm going to talk about the hadagi, or the thing that goes underneath it, and there's like a tea stain in it. So this hadagi I actually have worn since I made it because I wore it under a cosplay at an anime con like 18 years ago, or when no, I think that was 20 years ago, AX 2000, yup. Anyway, yeah, this we made in, basically I started halfway through the second year of high school, and then I finished like 2 months into the third year of high school. So what was their second half of the school year, their second year, but was my like first half of my year in Japan. I was in the home ec / culture class of the agricultural high school that I went to in Mizusawa, Japan. And we, in our course, worked on culture, which is kind of this broad category, and that included things like cooking and tea ceremony and calligraphy and flower arrangement and sewing. So we also had regular sewing class called hifku, where we would learn how to like sew children's dresses, or the third year project, and I only did the first half of this, we sewed ourselves a suit. So the first half was the skirt. I made the skirt because that's the easier part, and then the second part of the year they were going to work on the blazer. So normal sewing, but then we also had Wasai class, and in that class we made traditional Japanese sewn things for the most part. I mean, Wasai, that was the class we also looked at tea ceremony or flower arrangement or calligraphy. Thankfully, I never had to do calligraphy because I would have sucked at it. But anyway, this is a hadagi, and you are supposed to wear this under any kimono or yukata. You don't just wear a kimono or a yukata like over a bra and nothing else. You wear a hadagi under it. It's made with a very, very thin, very breathable white fabric. I'm going to try to hold it still and zoom in on it so you can see a little bit better. And as you can see, maybe you can see, there's this like rectangular piece up here where the back is, and the same sewing thing happens on the yukata. I believe this is just like to reinforce it, make it stronger. And then it's all hand sewn, by the way. That's like all the traditional Japanese sewing, you do it by hand. And there's some special sewing techniques that I learned specifically in Wasai that I don't remember what any of them are called, and I don't even remember how to do some of them, but they're really, really neat hand sewing techniques. They're kind of like couture sewing in that all of the edges of your seams are hidden and tucked under, so it's very clean. You don't have to use a serger to correct your seams, to close off your seams. The armpits are open. Here, I'll just show you. I'll put it on one side and show you how the armpits are open. And this is nice because it helps keep them cooler, like in the summertime when it's really hot. Oh, that's right, I shaved last night. Yay, how fortuitous. You're supposed to have like some strings on the side to secure this. I don't know why I didn't wind up sewing those on, but I have a safety pin instead. And then this is the yukata proper, and this we made in the first part of our third year. It was supposed to be an all year long project, but as I mentioned before, I was only really there for like the first 2 months of my third year, so I wouldn't have finished this if I'd done it properly by hand. So as I recall, I did sort of like the edging on it by hand. Yeah, like I did this sleeve hem by hand, and I did, I think the collar I did like the finishing parts of it by hand. Yeah, there's some hand stitching here. I remember the night before my last day of school, I was up until 1 a.m. working on this to finish it in time because I wanted to wear it my last day of school to dance in. But yeah, most of this I wound up doing by machine. Like this center seam and the side seams, like those are all machine done. You're not supposed to do them by machine. My teachers were like, oh yeah, and then when you get back home, you can take it apart and like sew it properly. I never did that. Like, who has time for that? But yeah, the really cool thing about Japanese sewing, and you can kind of see this really clearly in the sleeve situation. And again, this one has an open armpit. But anyway, you can see it in the sleeve situation pretty clearly. Japanese sewing, you work with just solid blocks of fabric, and there's like hardly any scraps of fabric left over. When I sew a dress, like a Western style dress, all the pieces are like cut like triangles with curved bits and stuff like that. And then you have a bunch of scraps of fabric left over at the end, which is saved for some project in the future that you think you're gonna do and you don't wind up doing it. Then you have all these scraps of fabric under your bed, which you wind up giving to another friend who thinks she's gonna use them, and then she doesn't, and then she gives them to another friend, and thus goes the cycle. But with Japanese sewing, there's like really no extra scraps of fabric left over for the most part. This right here, this curved bit, actually that was not cut, and then I used a special technique to gather the fabric. I don't know how well you can see this. Probably not very well, but anyway, you gather it. Looks like 4 rows of gathers, and that's how you round it off. Pretty clever. So let's put this on. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you're supposed to have like cords to fasten this hadagi, but I don't, so I just used a safety pin. So I had to look this up, and I really hope I'm right. I like double checked it and triple checked it, but your left side has to go over your right side. I mean, it looks backwards to you guys. It looks like it's my right over my left. Otherwise, I'm dead. Corpses are dressed the opposite way, so double, triple check when you're dressing yourself just to make sure the correct side is over. But anyway, this is my undergarment portion. You wouldn't necessarily wear shorts under this, but I'm on the internet, so I'm wearing shorts. So the thing about yukatas is they are longer than you. Mine, you can't see it super well because I haven't backed the camera all the way back, but this yukata is, I'm standing on tiptoe right now, and the yukata is still dragging on the floor, and that's how it's supposed to be. In fact, my yukata is a little too short because I'm tall. I'm abnormally tall for a Japanese woman. I'm only 5'7", but that's like really tall over there for a woman. But anyway, I could not make it any longer than this, like, because the bolt of the fabric is only a certain length. So I made it as long as I possibly could, because you want it to be more long than you are, because there has to be this fold over it. You'll see in a minute. Okay, so as I said earlier, you need a cord to go around this. I don't really have the proper cord, so I'm using this cord from my husband's robe. So what you want to do in theory, by the way, I am no master at this. This is my very first time putting a yukata on myself, so I'm kind of just going off of what I saw on the internet and basic theory. But you just want to tie this really tight to secure it. I don't know if this is high or low enough. You know, that's gonna have some awkward hangy thingies, so. Okay, so not the most flattering thing, and it's kind of not supposed to be, like you're supposed to not have curves. All right, so you have all this weird, awkward overhangy bit. I'm going to flatten it over it so that it hangs properly. About like this, then it's time to put the obi on. So my first host mom actually gave me a really special obi. Usually it's just like a sash and then you have to tie it in a bow at a special way at the end, but this is like a sash and then it has a separate bow that's already done. So people like me who don't know how to wear yukata or kimono can kind of fake it. Dang, this is difficult to do by myself. So I believe you're supposed to kind of wrap it around itself a couple times. Oh my. I can't wait to read all the comments from people who know how to put yukatas on, telling me everything I'm doing wrong. There, kind of like that. Wow, that looks bad. Then the bow goes on top. And I'm supposed to fasten it in there with these strings, but I don't really know how to do that, so I'm just gonna kind of tuck them under if I can. Whoo! And then flip the whole thing around. Oh, it's so beautiful. こんなもんかな? I'm like desperately trying to give myself the little overhangy thing. And you kind of would do that after you put your obi on. Kind of adjust. Actually, that does not look as bad as I thought it did. Another problem is I have a really short waist, so like this obi is kind of too thick for my waist. Really long legs, short waist. Anyway, this is kind of what it is. My home ec teachers that were helping me make this, they said, well, katachi ni natteru means like, well, it's taken the shape okay. And like, that's kind of how my wearing of it is at the moment. It's like, well, I've taken the shape. It's not really being worn properly, but it looks kind of like it is. And I love the sleeves. The sleeves are like my favorite part of a yukata. So yukata are typically worn in the summer because they're sort of a cool version and a less formal version of a kimono. Oh, by the way, you don't want the skirt opening like that. You're not supposed to spread your legs like I do. You're supposed to, that sounded bad. And the bow. So I mentioned earlier that I wore this on my last day of school because I danced in it. I was in the folk dancing club at school and I did a dance, one of our few dances, oh that's nice, one of our few dances that actually used yukata. Most of our dances we did not dance in yukata like this, but like this was one of the dances that was a yukata dance, and it was a dance I was always put in this dance. I guess they thought, oh, that's the one that she can do, so she'll just keep doing that dance, and it used fans. And they gave me this and another fan at the end of the school year, as well as a couple zori. These were our dancing zori. But yeah, they're made of foam. They, like this tatami stuff is not real, it's like plastic. And it was really weird dancing in zori at first, like dancing, jumping around and skipping and stuff. Like try doing that in flip-flops and see how long they stay on your feet. But there's a technique to it, so once I got used to it, it was pretty cool. And I have a couple pairs of these zori as well. But you can't see my feet, so I'm not gonna wear them. Ah, this feels so nice. I still kind of remember the dance. I have a video of that actually up on this channel. I think it's blocked in most countries, so you might need a Japanese VPN to watch it, but I have a couple Japanese folk dancing videos up here somewhere. I'll put cards so you can look at it. Anyway, the only thing that remains is to put something cute in my hair. Kind of like a corset. It's really hard to slouch in this thing because of the obi. Anyway, I put some hydrangeas or ajisai in my hair because this time of year they're all over Japan, and actually here in Washington they're all over the place as well. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my little trip down memory lane. I had a fun time failing putting on a yukata and showing it off for my husband, and him giving me his amused, yes, yes, that's nice, dear, let me play my video games look. Maybe if I ever have an opportunity to go to a matsuri again, I will wear this. And hopefully I'll have somebody around who knows about yukata to help me put it on, because it's really hard putting it on by yourself when you don't really know what you're doing. Thank you to all the patrons who make this and other videos on this channel possible, and thank you to everyone for watching.